Now, 3 years into President Tinubu's administration, the battle for Nigeria's political future is already underway. The president and his supporters argue that difficult but necessary reforms are beginning to yield results. A more stable exchange rate, rising state revenues, renewed investor confidence, a stronger stock market, and major investments in infrastructure, agriculture, and education. The opposition, however, sees a very different picture, one of rising hardship, deepening poverty, stubborn inflation, and persistent insecurity. At the same time, the opposition itself appears to be undergoing a dramatic realignment. What was once presented as a united coalition determined to challenge the APC in 2027 is now showing signs of strain, with disagreements, defections, and competing presidential ambitions raising questions about whether it can remain a credible alternative. Well, into that debate has stepped Daniel Bwala, special advisor to the president on media and policy communication. In a strongly worded intervention, he suggested that recent criticisms and political maneuvers within the opposition have exposed deeper contradictions and weaknesses, arguing that the choice before Nigerians in 2027 is becoming increasingly clear. So tonight, as the Tinubu administration marks its 3rd anniversary, we take stock. Has the president earned a second term based on performance? Are the economic sacrifices beginning to produce tangible gains? And is the opposition offering Nigerians a compelling alternative, or merely proving the president's case that he remains, as his supporters insist, the strongest political option on the table? And Daniel Bwala joins me now in the studio. Good to see you, Daniel.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Good evening.
How was the Chelsea match?
Actually, Chelsea didn't play the match, but Chelsea's aspiration is for Arsenal to lose the Champions League. So it's as good as saying we won the Champions League.
I like that.
Because Paris is blue,
yes,
PSG is blue, Chelsea is blue, London is blue.
Yeah, but, well, you know, that's a story for another day. Let's leap into it with both feet, because after 3 years of the Tinubu government, the administration, as I mentioned, says the fundamentals are improving, the exchange rate has stabilized, state revenues, and so on and so forth. But if the economy is doing so well, why are so many Nigerians still struggling to see it in their daily lives?
The answer is simply population and resources. The population is over 230 million. The resources we have, however, the increased revenue is not enough to match with the population and deficit in terms of the infrastructure. So growth will have to be slow, but it will be slow, steady, and consistent. That is what we take pride in.
Right. Well, President Tinubu argues that he inherited, and perhaps he's right, a deeply troubled economy,
Right.
And had to take painful decisions. But it's 3 years hence. What would you point to as the single most tangible, I'm not saying achievement, improvement that an ordinary Nigerian can actually feel, rather than simply reading about it in economic reports and from people like you
Right.
saying that things have improved?
Actually, everything you said in your prelude or in the monologue are tangible, they are reflective, and they're experience-based. Because, for example, when you talk about the increased revenue, the effect of that increased revenue is the increased allocation to states, which has resulted in state administering, and which has also resulted in the impact on the people. So
What
the
kind
direct,
of impact?
so the increased revenue is directly proportional to the positive effect that we see in states because of the increased
I
revenue.
don't understand what you're saying. If you give more money to governors,
Right.
how does that necessarily, in a country as spectacularly corrupt as Nigeria, how does it translate into somebody's capacity to buy food in the market?
So, for example, there are states, because this is an individual experience based state-by-state basis.
Right.
And first of all, the money is not to the governors. The money is to the states.
Yeah, but the governors have control of them.
Yes, but the point to be made is that the money is to the states.
Well,
the
that's
governors,
just semantics.
No, it's a fact. The governors are just the chief accounting officers of the state. There is an accountant in this television house. There's chief accountant here, but he doesn't own the money. Now, but there are states you can point at tangible result of their policies dealing with, for example, hunger, by the provision of food and agricultural materials, even by the boosting of some of the things that the agricultural...
Well, the most successful of those states is not an APC state, is it? I mean, the one everybody talks about is Abia State.
No, I don't think, first of all, I appreciate the fact that Abia is doing a lot in his state. But I can tell you that for me, based on stats and facts on ground, Enugu far outweighed Abia in terms of tangible infrastructure
you cannot
development.
attribute what Enugu has done. I mean, Enugu's only been an APC state, and I'm from Enugu.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I thought you were from Anambra.
No. It's only been an APC state for a few months, really.
But it's still an APC state at the moment.
Yeah, but you can't take credit for something that you didn't have a hand in creating.
No, I only respond to that direct question of Abia by countering it with Enugu. But that is not to say that Enugu is the state that we are putting forward. Let me give you an example of Lagos. I'm sure you will start talking about infrastructure and the rest. Wow. What Lagos has achieved, even dealing with infrastructure, you know, the rail lines, dealing with agriculture, look at the food production, dealing with security, dealing with sanity of the state. There are quite a number of things
Lagos
you can mention.
Is an island.
Come to Borno State.
Lagos is an island.
But come to Borno, you asked for the state. Come to Borno State, the state where I'm from, and see how the governor has carefully piloted the state in such a way that even our countermeasure to the resurgence of insurgency in the state has clearly demonstrated the effectiveness of that governor. Need I talk about the agricultural intervention that the governor is providing? I am actually not here to start talking about state versus state because it would then take away my job description, which is to talk about what the federal government is doing, which the concomitant effect is seen in the states. And I'm sure you have very limited time. So before I say anything, you will say we'll finish. But I can tell you as a federal government...
almost 20 minutes.
No, we haven't done up to 3 minutes.
So go on.
The federal government and the government of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has introduced policies that have affected the common man on the street. So for example, when we talk about over 1 million beneficiaries of the NEL fund, these are not children of the rich. These are children of the poor who, but for the intervention in this regard, they may not have achieved or may not have the opportunity to go to achieve their dream. That is direct impact on the poor person. When we talk about in terms of transportation, what the CNG initiative has done, you need to go to the street, and we go to the street and talk to people. All they are asking is we need more investment in that field so we can have more of that production. But the direct effect is on the poor man. When we talk about healthcare, and we talk about the cesarean section I was here the other time I told you about, and I talk about 50% subsidy on dialysis. These are poor people because the rich people don't need that. As a matter of fact, most of them are abroad. So every policy introduced by this government, the direct beneficiaries are the poor. But you have asked a very valid question, and in my opinion, I responded very correctly. Because anytime a conversation is done around these things that we're talking about, people try to measure that in pari passu, ranking in pari passu the population. Because it's a large population, you have to look at that context and say, this is what we've been able to do. But if there were resources, take for example in the loan program, the NEL fund program, if we have enough resources, instead of boasting about over 1 million people as direct beneficiaries, we'll be telling you 10 million people are beneficiaries. It's a program that is working. It's a program that has affected the lives of people.
Right. How much have you reduced poverty in Nigeria?
So this is where we then start to look at numbers. We then start looking at stats. And in your monologue, you try to say most Nigerians or many Nigerians are complaining that it is one thing to see the statistics and another to see the direct impact on the people.
To be honest with you, I have not heard any Nigerian on the level that you're talking about talking up the administration's achievements. I haven't heard.
But that is subjective. Because you can also bring people in your station on the table that will say they have heard.
that argument, but what we do, it's not a subjective thing. What we do, as I'm sure you understand the way journalism operates, is that you do random surveys. You go out on the street and you talk to people randomly,
Right.
from different backgrounds, different ethnicities, and so on. And all of them come to the same conclusion, that their lives have not actually improved. And the argument that most of them make, and it's not to sort of
I understand.
try and talk down what
No,
you're
I understand,
saying.
but I have.
the argument they make is that the administration appears to be too focused on the macroeconomic indicators. That's what you always see in the papers, this percent, that percent, inflation is coming, all kinds of things, and not focused enough on household economics.
I think that it is the
So
amplification.
you're celebrating
No.
numbers while citizens are counting their
see,
losses. And that's a fact.
I just, in the last 5 minutes, I just mentioned to you the effect of the policies on the poor. It's a matter of saying you disagree that there are 1 million people that have benefited. But that is what I put it to you about the poor people. So when I said it is a subjective reportage or subjective polling system, because we know how polling, what is the sample size, what is the margin of error? I can go out to the street and draft a polling system that I will make a conclusion and drive the narrative to the end.
You see
because there are, I'm coming, sir, there are other TV stations who have reported this type of random sampling in which a lot of Nigerians
which favors you. Basically.
No, a lot of Nigerians who it's a mixed kind of result. There would always be frustration on people, and this government is not under the illusion that Nigerians are not suffering. What we are saying,
I'm glad you said that, because
yes, I've always said that.
When people listen to some of this stuff, they feel almost insulted.
No, but I have always said
that you're ramming it down their throats, whilst a lot of the people in the administration are living large, driving fancy cars and traveling abroad and doing all kinds of things. I mean, it would be different if you said, okay, the president said, we're going to cut all this, and people feel that everybody is either on the same level or approximately on the same. You see what I mean? It's that sense that you rub it in their faces. And the other thing is the issue of the differences, that how other problems in society cancel out whatever it is you're saying that you've achieved.
So let me give you an example.
The constant, steady lack of electricity. The constant problem of insecurity, where so many people can't even go to the school you're talking about.
Right. So let me give you a perspective, because I think that, again, perspective will matter in this sense. And I will beg you to give me a moment.
Of course.
The cliche, the rhyme, the rap, the stanza that is often driven in the media by the opposition and sometimes even by members of the press, because you echo and mirror what's happening. And if the opposition have spoken more than we have spoken, you mirror what they say. Is this same rhetoric? People are poor, people are this, people are
rhetoric.
That. No, I will come. That's why I say if you give me a moment, because if you cut the flow of thought, then it can carry a very different meaning to it. In 1960, Nigerians complained about hunger, deprivation, poverty, death, and healthcare problem. In 1970, Nigerians have made the same complaint. In 1983, Nigerians complained. In 1998, they did. In 1999, 2003, there has never been a moment since the creation of this country in which there was no complaint about either poverty, healthcare, and the rest.
Well, I beg to differ.
But let me finish. Let me finish. Sorry. There has never been that time.
Yeah.
So if I hear somebody saying this, that, or that, I am not perturbed by that. Now, but the point to be made is, I said, and it bears repeating, and I've been saying that since from the day I started speaking for this government, we acknowledge the fact that Nigerians are suffering. We have our own people that are suffering as well. But we focus on solution, and we communicate to the Nigerian people the effort we have made or we are making regarding that. And then urge the Nigerian people to be patient, have faith in government. We will glide through. That has been our consistent message. But oftentimes, it is
basically
taken out.
You want them to re-elect you and continue to wallow in their suffering.
Again, so
whilst you get around to fixing the problem, whenever you finally
so you see,
get
you have
around
taken a position already.
No,
that means we are debating.
I am asking
you are not interviewing me. We are debating.
I am asking you a question.
And
it is a question.
So when I understand your question, but you don't understand my answer. But you don't understand my answer. You asked about direct effect on the poor. I mentioned that. Acknowledge. I mentioned in the area of healthcare,
Yeah, but
education.
I talked about the things that cancel out whatever it is you say you're doing.
Okay, then, if you say it cancel them out, my answer will be population. Now, for those who do economics and they understand planning, no matter the acumen, if the resources you have are so scarce that the population consume
So why
it,
did you make the promises you made at the outset? I mean, there's been an APC government
right,
in power since 2015.
right.
Okay.
I'm here to speak for President Bola Tinubu.
I'm just telling you that there's been a consistent. Are you not a member of the APC?
Yes, I am. But if you want to speak about APC, you speak to the
I'm
national
saying
chairman.
that there's an
I'm
APC,
speaking
an
about the
APC
policies of
an
President Bola
APC
Tinubu.
government. Okay, when you go for re-election,
don't worry. When we get there, we know what to say.
What I'm saying,
In this video, Mr. Charles was asking the question that every ordinary Nigerian is living. Why can't I feel this so-called progress? That question is the reality that almost every ordinary Nigerian is living their life, their daily experiences. So Daniel Bwala, as a presidential spokesperson, was doing his job. Yes, that is defending the macro numbers. I see both men talked past each other at the critical moment. And that gap between the macro story and the market store reality is exactly where Nigerian political analysis must live. Let's break it down. Now, the first thing that Daniel Bwala said was the population and the resources is the problem. Now, Nigeria's growth is slow because according to Daniel Bwala, Nigeria's growth is slow because 230 million people outnumber the available resources. Now, that's partially true, but dangerously convenient. Population is a structural reality, not a Tinubu era invention. Nigeria's population has always been over 200 million during every administration's tenure. More critically, the countries that have successfully managed large populations, countries like India, Indonesia, Bangladesh, did so through targeted productivity investments, not by citing population as an explanation for stagnation. India in the 1990s, which the World Bank itself has now compared Nigeria's reform movement to, had over 850 million people and poverty rates comparable to Nigeria's today. They moved the needle through manufacturing, agricultural productivity, and institutional reform. What makes Bwala's answer problematic is not that it is false, it is that it's a deflection. A government spokesperson's job is to explain what the government is doing about the structural challenge, not to cite the challenge as an alibi. The Nigerian voter on the street who saw his transport fare triple and his Gary price double didn't do that to himself. He is part of the 230 million. Telling him the population is the problem is telling him that he is the problem. Also, he said something about the increased revenue translates to positive effects in the states. You see, higher FAC allocations to states mean more money for services, which the people feel. That's what Bwala implied. Yes, the FAC allocations were increased to every state, but the logic has a massive hole. This is where Bwala is factually on the strongest ground, and it deserves honest acknowledgement. FAC disbursed an unprecedented 15.26 trillion to the federal, state, and local governments in 2024, a 43% increase compared to the previous years, with the surge attributed to fiscal reforms, including fuel subsidy removal and exchange rate adjustments. Going further back, state governments received 2.75 trillion in 2022, 3.92 trillion in 2023 and 5.38 trillion in 2024, a cumulative increase of over 95% in 2 years. These are real numbers. The reforms genuinely unlocked more naira revenue, primarily because oil receipts are now captured at the real exchange rate rather than an artificial one. But here is what Bwala did not say and what Mr. Charles was circling toward. Despite record revenues, Nigerian states continue to under-prioritize human development, spending an average of just 3,483 naira per person on earth in 2024. None of Nigerian states spent up to 10,000 naira per capita, and only Lagos, Bayelsa, Edo, Abia, Kwara, Niger, and Delta recorded per capita spending above 500 naira. Now, listen to that again. Record revenues, 3,483 naira per person on earth. Now, for the woman in Kano managing a household of 50,000 naira monthly, that is approximately nothing. Additionally, 800 billion naira was deducted from state allocations in 2024 at source to service foreign debts and other contractual obligations, placing additional fiscal pressure on many states, particularly those with lower revenues. So the FAC windfall is real. What states do with it, and what is quietly deducted before it even arrives, is the part Bwala was not equipped to address in that studio. Bwala also said the money goes to states, not governors. This to the ordinary Nigerian on the street is irrelevant. The thing we know is that the money was released to the governors who are supposed to be the one to channel the money rightly into doing things that the ordinary person on the street will experience, that will bring ease to them. And this is where Bwala got into semantics and lost the room. In Nigerian governance reality, the distinction between the governor and the state is a legal fiction that accountability journalism has dismantled repeatedly. The same governance structure that gave us the looting of Plateau State, the Yaya Bello saga in Kogi, the River State financial crisis, operates on FAC allocations. The chief accounting officer framing that Bwala used, the exact words he used, only works if there is a functioning legislature, a working state audit system, an active civil society, and an independent judiciary holding that accounting officer to account. In most Nigerian states, at least two of those four are compromised. Now, this is where Mr. Charles also pushed back. How does giving more money to governors translate into someone's ability to buy food? That was the right question. Now, the hardest truth in the conversation is this: the macro-micro disconnect. The macro-micro disconnect. And that's the hardest truth in the conversation. That's the central crisis of the Tinubu economic narrative. And the interview illustrated it perfectly without either man fully naming it. The World Bank's country director for Nigeria stated plainly, these results are exactly what you need to see. These results are exactly what you need to see in a stabilization. These are big achievements. However, despite these stabilization gains, many Nigerians are still struggling. Most households are struggling with eroded purchasing power. In 2025, we estimate that 139 million Nigerians live in poverty. Now, that's what the World Bank's country director for Nigeria said. Now, poverty levels in Nigeria increased to 63% in 2025, even as inflation slowed, highlighting the limited impact of recent macroeconomic improvements on household welfare, according to the World Bank's Nigeria Development Update of April 2026. The World Bank is not a partisan body. They praised the reforms as foundational. And in the same breath, they confirmed that 139 million Nigerians are in poverty. The macro story and the human story are both true. And that is what makes the political argument so combustible. Bwala can point to exchange rate stability. Mr. Charles can point to the market. They are both pointing at Nigeria. They are both right. As the Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprise, CPP, noted this week, inflation surged sharply following the reforms as energy prices, transportation costs, and production expenses climbed. While Nigeria depreciation intensified imported inflation pressures, the consequences included declining real incomes, worsening poverty levels, and a deepening cost of living crisis for many Nigerians. Now, Bwala, in this, there's what Bwala got right. Now, what Bwala got right, it was correct that the conversation about state governance cannot be separated from the federal narrative. If Lagos is building rail lines and Borno is resisting insurgency without begging Abuja every week, that is partly a function of increased fiscal autonomy and higher allocations. It was also correct that credit for state performance, positive or negative, flows in multiple directions. His reference to Borno's security performance and agricultural intervention deserved more development. Those are stories the federal government should be telling more forensically, with data, not as a deflection from the FAAC to poverty question. Now, the bottom line is this. Three things are simultaneously true about Nigeria's economy today. Number one, the macroeconomic reforms were necessary and are showing measurable results. Exchange rate stabilization, higher reserves, record FAAC revenues. These are real. Number two, the cost of those reforms has been paid almost entirely by ordinary Nigerians through petrol prices that quintupled, food inflation that hit 40%, and purchasing power that collapsed. That is also real. Number three, more money flowing through the system has not automatically meant more money reaching the people. Because Nigeria's governance architecture at the state and local level continues to intercept, misallocate, and waste the windfall. A man cannot eat FAAC disbursement figures. The question for 2027 is not whether Tinubu's reforms were bold. They were. The question is whether 3 years is enough time and whether the pain was shared equitably enough to earn a mandate renewal, or whether the opposition can articulate a credible alternative model. Based on what we saw in that exchange, the administration has not yet closed that argument, and neither has the opposition opened it convincingly. Thank you for watching. Share your views in the comment section. Like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.